just needs one more minute. One more minute. I'm making ice cream for myself. Just for me. Hi, girl, hi. You know what? It's not a spicy book because TikTok doesn't allow that. We're finishing our book from regular times. Hold on, sorry. Just wait for the noise to end. Just give it 1 second. 1 second. 1 second. It's flashing. It's almost done. It's a very long minute. Oh my God. Let's go. Let's go. Sleepover trial, yes! Do you mix flavor? That's funny. Oh my gosh, thank God. That was so loud. Holy moly, I'm so glad that would end. Jeez Louise. Okay, I made peaches and cream ice cream. Oh my gosh, so yummy. Really good. And because Secret Fiance is an absolute gem, he found me sugar-free ice cream cones so that I could have my ice cream in a cone, not just in a cup. Because if you are sugar-free like me, you know that the saddest thing is that you always have to have it in a cup because all the cones are usually, you know, all sugary and stuff. So I'm gonna have my ice cream in a cone today. Oh, I'm making a mess. I'm making a mess, but it's okay. It's okay. Just ignore my mess and just know that it's delicious. It's not important what it looks like. It's just important that it's delicious, right? She isn't going to party now. She's staying home. Thank you, Ellie. Thank you. It's so good. It's really yummy. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Ellie. Yeah, what are you having? What kind of ice cream do you have, Shira? Oh my gosh, it's so yummy. Was there a reason besides the obvious that you decided to cut out all sugar? I have PCOS. Yeah. Does everyone have their tissues? Look, it's just me. It's an empty house. Does everyone have their tissues? Because we're finishing Land of Stories and probably gonna cry. Have you never seen my sushi mermaid before? Wait, seriously? I'm getting married on Wednesday. This is my favorite piece of art that I own. I love her. She's in our kitchen. Isn't that amazing? Sugar-free Klondike bars are amazing. Yeah. Isn't that fun? I love her. I think she's hilarious. You have your blanket and you're ready for tears. Ice cream in a cone, you guys. It's freaking unusual for someone who's sugar-free. Okay, how with one hand am I gonna do this? Oh, okay. PCOS making life difficult for me. Yeah, I didn't find out until I was like 30. So, yeah, rough. Gosh, I'm a rager. This is my bachelorette party. I'm in pajamas with ice cream and a Chris Colfer book. I have a corgi riding a velociraptor holding a spear. That's about correct, yeah. No, we didn't read multiple chapters this morning. No, we didn't. We only read one. Ellie, I do get to have ice cream right here. We only read one chapter this morning. No worries, Ray. Curious how strict you are, but like when you go out, do you ask? I'm sure I do. I'm really strict. I'm getting married on Wednesday. I got diagnosed in my early 20s. I'm 36 now. I wish I had been diagnosed earlier. So when I go, I've gotten really good at being able to spot when things have sugar in them, like based on what kind of sauce it has on it. So I usually ask that question. Or I'll get things with sauce on the side and I'll have Secret Fiance test them for me first. Like he'll taste it first. And you can usually tell. She wants to know why she can't. Oh, well, next time you come visit me, I'll make you ice cream, sweetheart. No problem. This is peaches and cream ice cream that I made. Excuse me, that was my tummy. It's so good though. Yeah, I'm pretty strict. Yeah. Like, yeah. I eat fruit sugars though. Hey, Carl, I made it in my ice cream maker. It's the Ninja Creamy. Yeah, that is the machine. It's so easy. It's so easy to make. I promise we're gonna start reading as soon as I eat this ice cream, but like I had to party a little bit, right? I've gotten so behind on the books. The morning meetings have been hellish. Oh my gosh, that's terrible, Amanda. When did you go back to work? Really, Jack? Yeah, oh, they're the worst. They're pointless. They don't tell you anything useful, Jack. If you ever want like some of the info of like what I do, I'm happy to help, but obviously it's different for everyone. Yes, book club bachelorette edition, that's right. When are you gonna make slime again? I'm probably not gonna make slime anymore. I think I've given it up permanently. Went to work last July, I love corporate. Last July? Are you being serious? Didn't you just have that baby? Is my timeline that off? How long ago did you have the baby? She's like, babies, twins, sorry, right. But like, are any recommendations for sugar-free adult beverages? Yes, Two Chicks. Two Chicks is top tier, made with agave cocktails. They're cocktails, like spritzers in a can, the best ones on the market, and my babies are 15 months, so yeah, over a year. Okay, so I was guessing a year. Yeah, no, sorry guys, no slime, just ice cream. I'm now rainbow ice cream girl. Yeah. Yeah. And Two Chicks has an Instagram, and they're very active on there, so you can always see when they make new flavors. So good. I'm about to be 102. I'm currently 101, but I'm having a birthday soon. When you mentioned sugar-free helped you, I've been transitioning. It's so much hidden sugar. You can't have ketchup. You can't have almond milk. You can't have Exactly. So Jenna Ortega doesn't like slime. We don't like slime. You know what? I have trouble with monk fruit. Does anyone else feel like monk fruit makes things too sweet? Or maybe I've just been sugar-free for so long that any kind of sugar substitute, like it just like, it feels cloying to me, but maybe I just need to use less. I don't really know. It's sickening. Okay, so it's not just me, because, okay, so I originally tried to use monk fruit in like baking, because sometimes you need sugar for like baking things just to make sure the mixture's correct, to whip things, you know what I mean? And I couldn't even eat the stuff I made because it was just like, it did like that weird feeling on your tongue, you know? And I can't do it, so I don't really do that. It's one of the few my body can tolerate. Yeah, use less. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. I love dates and agave as a sweetener. Yeah, agave is super sweet, but if you just have like a tiniest drop, so good. But I love things that are sweet with dates. You know, like those bars that are only made with like dates and 2 other things. Oh, I'll eat those all day, every day. They're so good. Yeah. Yeah, coconut sugar are good too, but obviously it always tastes like coconut, so it depends on what you're making, you know what I mean? Like, if I don't want it in my coffee, you know? I don't want my coffee to taste like coconut. I know some people do, but I just don't. I cannot tell you the last time I had an ice cream cone. It's like the most exciting thing ever. Does it taste like dates? Not really, Becca. I just stood up and my hip cracked. Now I'm feeling my age. Happy birthday, Liz. You guys, it's Liz's birthday. Everyone say happy birthday to Liz. Well, listen, you know, if you like coconut coffee, then that's great. I'm okay with palm sugar. I've had that before. It doesn't taste too weird to me. Yeah, maybe, Mina. Do you know they have a sugar substitute? That's the brown sugar substitute. Secret Fiance used it when he made eggnog last year. Yeah. It's true. I promise we are gonna read. You're having your 30th birthday? Or are you gonna do like one of those fun dirty 30 photo shoots? I did that photo shoot for my friend. I didn't have one for myself, but like I took the pictures for my friend when she turned 30. It was fun. We had a good time. She like smashed a cake. It was like a whole thing. It was really fun. I wonder where those pictures are. What's everyone's favorite flavor of ice cream? I am wearing a cute dress on Wednesday. I will show you all. You're doing a few. That's hilarious, Amanda. A family pool day. That's fun. Does a half birthday in 3 days count for a celebration? I say yes. Why not? Strawberry mint chip, chocolate, sherbet. Panda Paws ice cream. What's that? I don't know what that is. What's Panda Paws ice cream? I don't know that one. I like mint chip. Pistachio, I also like, we make a sugar-free pistachio ice cream, and pistachio was my grandma's favorite. It's very Italian. Birthday cake was good. Yeah. Why can't you have peanut butter anymore? We were just talking about Salt and Straw today, Jen, because Secret Fiance got a blue cheese ice cream there. Like blue cheese and fig or something wild like that. It was crazy. Vanilla peanut butter. Oh, I didn't know about that one. Viral Dubai pistachio chocolate bar. What is that? I don't know about. It gives you migraines. Now, all of it or just the really sugary ones? Yeah, he loves blue cheese. Oh, you guys don't even understand. This man is obsessed with blue cheese. You name it, he's put blue cheese on it. Like, pick a thing, name a thing, he has put blue cheese on it. He's obsessed. Pizza, blue cheese, done, all the time. Hey, Shelly. Slime, well, he would put blue cheese on it. Hot dogs, I'm sure he would, but it's moldy. Yes, and he loves it. Cheese, he puts blue cheese on for sure. I love blue cheese minus creamy blue cheese dressing. He likes every form of it. Yes, cake, yes. Yes, he has put it on ice cream that I made for him before. Are you ready to be appalled? He put it on my pasta. I made him homemade pasta with homemade sauce and meatballs, and he put blue cheese on top of it. I screamed the first time I saw him do that. I was like, sir, what are you doing? And he was like, it's delicious, don't judge me. And I was like, sir, I just made you a homemade Italian meal with recipes from my grandmother. How dare you? How dare you? And he was like, don't look at me, I'm hideous. That's what he always says when sometimes I find him in the fridge scooping blue cheese out of the thing with a spoon, and he goes, don't look at me, I'm hideous. He's got mold in his mind, he craves it now. Yes, like the cat parasites, that's right. Okay, sure, I'll tell him because he's obsessed. Obsessed with blue cheese. How do we order a roll for slime? Through my Patreon. Roll for slimes are only through Patreon at this time. Oh my gosh, you started reading Prince of Oregon? Thank you so much. That's amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please review it when you're done. Even if you don't like it, reviews help boost it. I will tell him that, Victoria, and I guarantee you he will do it tomorrow. That's really funny, Becca, but it was pasta, yes. How could you desecrate my pasta sauce with blue cheese? I slaved over that sauce. Truly. I'll tell him, Victoria. I will tell him. All right, I'm almost done with this ice cream. I promise we're gonna read. Gross, Becca. It's super upsetting. I was upset. An actual crime. I'm stalking my driveway cam so I can call the boys when they're home. That's really cute. How long have you gone, Tressa? Becca is texting me gross things, you guys, yes. We're not ever reading, it was a trap. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if anything can upset you after that. Will we get to see wedding pictures? Anything that doesn't have Secret Fiance or the kids' faces. Just here reactivating Storm. You missed them because they're your babies, Tressa. Obviously. It's really nice to have a cone. I might have 2 of these tonight. Slaved over that. Slaved over that. Slaved over that sauce. Wednesday, Shelly. Wednesday. What's Secret Fiance doing for his wild night out? They went to a fancy restaurant, he and his 3 best friends. They are all out right now at a very, very, very fancy lobster place with water view. They sent me a picture. They're all wearing sport coats, fancy pantsy boys. I'm sure they have blue cheese of some kind. Yes, they're being fancy. Yeah, no, not Red Lobster. Like, you know, you should do a Photoshop cartoon character. That's funny. That would be adorable. I know. He's probably putting blue cheese on his lobster like a monster. It's very cute. I'm almost done. We're gonna read. Guys, we have 3 chapters left. We're gonna finish this book tonight, come hell or high water, and we're probably gonna cry. Who's ready to cry? What idea, Anya? Yeah, a nice dinner with nice drinks. Exactly, Victoria. And my ideal night is a night in with ice cream and a book. Who crazy? What a party. Thank you, Jessica. You know what, Ellie? You know what's even better than sprinkles? Freeze-dried marshmallows. And those I do have, but they don't taste good with this flavor. Oh, concert and book club. I like it. All right. Shall we get into it? Are we ready? Victoria, that sounds like my perfect night. I'm obsessed with cheese and also I love slime. So yeah, invite me next time. I'm watching a YouTube concert right now and listening to book club. Stevia sprinkles. Oh, that's exciting. Okay, is everyone taking a collective deep breath? Because like, I don't know, you know, this might be really hard for us. So brace yourselves, folks, because ladies and gentlemen, we're down to the end here. I'm scared too. I was scared this morning and I'm even more scared now. This chapter is just called The Snow Queen. And, okay, no problem, Vic. See you later. This is what the art looks like. No, we just started, Amanda. You didn't miss anything. We're just starting reading. You didn't miss anything. We were just bracing ourselves and taking deep breaths to like, you know, like steel yourself, you know? Chapter 20, The Snow Queen. Bristol climbed through the northern mountains as quickly and quietly as possible. She was so cold she was convinced that she would never feel warm again, and she became so tired she worried that she would collapse in the snow and never make it to Tinsel Palace. Bristol was afraid the Snow Queen would notice her sneaking through the mountains if she used any magic, so she refrained from casting spells to assist her and made the journey entirely on foot. The majority of the mountain range was so steep that Bristol needed both hands to scale it, and she carried her wand in her mouth for most of the trip. She was making great progress until she came to a slope that was so slippery it was nearly impossible to get over. It didn't matter what she grabbed or where she placed her feet. Bristol kept sliding down the slope and having to start the climb over again. After her 5th attempt, Bristol began to lose hope, but fortunately, something caught her eye that restored her faith. Peeking out from the thick snow beside her was a yellow daffodil. It wasn't an exceptionally pretty flower. Its color faded and its petals had withered in the cold wind, but by some miracle, the daffodil had survived the freezing weather. Although the flower was very small, it delivered the exact message Bristol needed. If the daffodil was strong enough to withstand the Snow Queen's storm, then so was she. Bristol got to her feet, and she climbed the slope for the 6th time and used all her strength to pull herself over its slippery summit, and soon Bristol was so high in the mountain that the air became thin and it was difficult to breathe. The battle between the Northern Kingdom's army and the Snow Queen was so far behind her, it was nothing but a distant murmur. Bristol knew that she was getting close to Tinsel Palace because the tower stretched higher into the sky with every step she took. After an exhausting exertion, Bristol climbed over the tallest mountain peak and finally arrived in the Northern Kingdom's capital.
Tinsel Heights was a large city in the center of the northern mountains. Due to the limited space, all the homes and shops were stacked on top of one another, and the narrow roads wound through the capital like a giant maze. Tinsel Palace was in the very center of town, and it soared to heights that surpassed the mountain range surrounding it. The palace was so tall and lean, its towers so piercing, that the entire structure looked like a group of sharpened pencils. Bristol couldn't tell what color or materials the palace was constructed from because the entire city was covered in a sheet of ice. She walked slowly and carefully as she traveled through the capital so that she wouldn't slip on the frosty roads. Not only was the city physically frozen, but Tinsel Heights was also eerily frozen in time. The streets were littered with townspeople who had been frozen while going about their daily errands. Bristol peeked through the window and saw frozen butchers, bakers, and locksmiths helping frozen customers in their shops. The homes were filled with frozen fathers, mothers, and children in the middle of household chores. Obviously, the Snow Queen had struck the capital so quickly that the city's people hadn't had time to react, let alone run to safety. Eventually, Bristol arrived at Tinsel Palace and crossed the bridge over its icy moat. In the front doors were frozen shut, so Bristol used her wand like a torch to thaw them open, and as she stepped inside, her first sight at the palace made her gasp. Not because of the damage the Snow Queen had caused, but because of how beautiful the palace was. Icicles hung from the ceiling in archways like pointed chandeliers. The walls were coated with frost that sparkled like crystal. The floor was covered in crackling ice like the surface of a frozen lake. Bristol had no idea what the palace looked like before the Snow Queen attacked, but she couldn't imagine it being any more spectacular than what she was seeing now. Bristol searched through Tinsel Palace, but she couldn't find Madame Weatherbury anywhere. Occasionally, she would see someone at the end of a long corridor or spacious room. Her heart would flutter, hoping that it was her teacher, but she only found frozen guards and servants at every turn. "Madame Weatherbury?" she shouted into the cold palace. "Madame Weatherbury, where are you?" Bristol entered the palace's dining hall and was startled by a gruesome sight. She found the Northern Kingdom's royal family frozen around the long dining table. King Nobleton, the Queen, and 2 teenage princes and the 4 young princesses had been enjoying a lavish meal when the Snow Queen struck. Although their skin was pale and there was no color in their eyes, the royal family seemed very much alive. The princes had died in the middle of a food fight, the Queen had perished while arguing with her daughters, and the King had frozen while scoffing at all of them. Bristol half expected the family to move at any moment and continue their activities, but the royals never awoke from their icy demise. Strangely, all the food and plates had been recently swiped off the table to make space for a collection of maps. Bristol inspected the collection and discovered a map of magic, a map that showed the whereabouts of the Northern Kingdom's army, and a map that showed the weather in all the kingdoms. She took a closer look at the map of weather and covered her mouth in horror. The powerful blizzard the classmates encountered in the in-between had spread across the whole world. Suddenly, the palace's front doors creaked open and the sound echoed through the royal residence. The temperature instantly dropped another 10 degrees. Someone with heavy footsteps and rattling breath stormed inside the palace, and Bristol knew there was only one person that it could be. The footsteps came closer and closer to the dining hall, and Bristol started to panic. She had thought that she would have more time to find Madame Weatherbury before the Snow Queen returned. Bristol didn't know what else to do, so she hid in the cupboard at the bottom of a giant china cabinet. The Snow Queen burst into the dining hall in a furious rage. The witch knocked over every vase and candelabra in the room and then crept toward the table. She gazed down at her map of the Northern Kingdom's army and saw that General White and his soldiers were evacuating the people from Appleton Village. The Snow Queen roared angrily and pounded the table with a clenched fist. She then turned the map of weather, and she watched her blizzard consume the world. Her fury turned into delight, and she let out a low, raspy cackle and exposed her rotting, jagged teeth. The Snow Queen's back was turned towards the china cabinet while she viewed the maps, and as Bristol peeked out from the cupboard, it slowly dawned on her what a profound opportunity was before her. This could be the most vulnerable position the Snow Queen had ever been in, right here, right now. With a quick flick of her wrist, Bristol could end the witch's reign of terror forever. She just needed to summon the right magic for the job. Bristol leaned out of the cupboard and pointed her wand directly at the Snow Queen's back. However, as Bristol imagined how she was going to kill the Snow Queen, her train of thought shifted to the moment after she killed the Snow Queen. Thousands of lives would be saved, but could Bristol live with herself in that aftermath? How would it feel to slay an unsuspecting woman? Would taking another life change who she was? Would she carry the guilt or regret after it was all over? She was paralyzed by her troubled conscience, and eventually Bristol knew that she couldn't go through with it. Well, the Snow Queen growled. Do it. Bristol jumped at the sound of her raspy voice. She was confused about who the Snow Queen was talking to. Bristol had been so quiet, there was no way the witch could have seen or heard her hiding in the cupboard. She glanced around the dining hall to see if someone else had entered the room, but Bristol and the Snow Queen were the only ones there. What's the matter? The Snow Queen growled. Are you getting cold feet? To Bristol's absolute horror, she realized the Snow Queen was talking to her. The witch could see her reflection in a mirror across the hall. Before Bristol had the chance to say or do anything, the Snow Queen whipped around and lunged toward the china cabinet. She grabbed Bristol by the throat and raised her into the air. Bristol dropped her wand and used both hands to pry the witch's bony fingers off her neck, but the grip was too tight. She tried to kick the Snow Queen off, but the witch was strong as a brick wall. You should have killed me when you had the chance, she roared. As the Snow Queen choked her, Bristol was so close to the witch's face, she could see every crack of her frostbitten skin, every crooked tooth of her jagged smile, and the pupils of her glowing red eyes. However, there was something about the witch's eyes that Bristol could have sworn she recognized, and once she noticed it, the rest of the Snow Queen's face became very familiar too. No, Bristol wheezed. No, it can't be. The thought was so distressing, Bristol kicked her legs even harder, and her foot knocked the icicle scepter out of the Snow Queen's other hand. The scepter fell and shattered into hundreds of pieces on the floor, and as soon as the scepter slipped from her fingertips, the Snow Queen lost all of her strength. The witch dropped Bristol onto the floor and collapsed beside her. The Snow Queen tried crawling away from Bristol, but the witch was so weak without her scepter that she could barely move. Once Bristol caught her breath, she grabbed the Snow Queen's shoulder and forced the witch onto her back so that they could face one another. The Snow Queen's glowing red eyes slowly diminished and turned into a pair of eyes that Bristol had seen many times before. There was no denying it now. Bristol knew exactly who the Snow Queen was, and the discovery made her heart feel like it had been ripped in half. Madam Weatherbury, she gasped, it's you. Bristol had never experienced such shock in her life. As the reality sank in, Bristol's whole body went numb, and she couldn't even feel the freezing air circulating in the palace. Her mind was bombarded with millions of questions, but only a single word escaped her mouth. How? The exposed fairy was humiliated and covered her frostbitten face. She crawled to the dining table and used a chair to pull herself to her feet. I never wanted you to find out, Madam Weatherbury said. You were supposed to kill me before you learned the truth. But how is this even possible? How could you be the Snow Queen? Sometimes good people do bad things for the right reasons. Bad things? Bristol asked in disbelief. Madam Weatherbury, nothing could possibly justify what you've done. You've been lying since the day I met you. You've been covering the world in a devastating storm. You've destroyed an entire kingdom and taken thousands of lives. It's nothing compared to the lives they've taken from us. For a split second, the Snow Queen returned to Madam Weatherbury's body. The fairy screamed in agony as if the creature was trying to claw its way out from the inside of her. Bristol retrieved her wand to defend herself against the witch, and as she watched Madam Weatherbury struggle, Bristol remembered that her teacher and the Snow Queen weren't the same person, but two very different beings fighting over the same body. Eventually, the fairy regained control and suppressed the witch with a growing illness. I never meant for any of this to happen, Madam Weatherbury said. All I wanted was to make the world a better place
For people like us, all I wanted was to secure acceptance for the magical community, but I lost myself along the way and created her.
How could someone lose themselves that much? Bristol was so befuddled that she felt like she might faint. Madame Weatherbury lowered her head in shame and took a deep breath before explaining.
Do you remember our conversation the day that you were attacked by the witch hunters? You were sitting in my office and you asked me how I managed to stay so optimistic. You asked me why I wasn't consumed with anger. I told you it was because we were the lucky ones. I told you that fighting for love and acceptance meant that we truly knew love and acceptance, and how that notion gave me peace. Do you remember that?
Yes, I remember, Bristol said.
Well, I lied to you, Madame Weatherbury said. The truth is, I've been angry my entire life. When I was young, I was very sensitive to the world's cruelty, and it filled me with an unbearable fury. I ignored all the good things in my life and focused solely on injustices around me. I became bitter. I became depressed. I became desperate to get rid of my rage. But I didn't go about taking the proper steps to help myself. I was too embarrassed and prideful to seek the treatment that I needed. Instead, I pushed all my anger deep within myself, and I hoped if I pushed it deep enough, I would never be able to find it. Over the years, I added more and more anger to my secret collection, and eventually, I created a monster inside of me.
You mean the Snow Queen lives inside you? Bristol asked.
Yes, Madame Weatherbury said. I spent the majority of my life ignoring her, but I've always known that she was there, growing stronger after every heartbreak. With time, I noticed that many people in the magical community were suffering from similar ailments. Our anger manifested itself in different ways. Some drank too many potions to numb the pain. Others turned to witchcraft as a way to release it, but one by one, I watched my friends lose themselves to their inner demons, and I didn't want another generation of fairies or witches to experience what we were feeling. So I decided to devote my life to securing acceptance for our community so the future would be spared from humanity's hatred.
So you wrote and published the truth about magic, Bristol said. You tried to convince the world that there was a difference between fairies and witches. You tried to redefine the magical community to save it?
Madame Weatherbury nodded. However, the endeavor quickly backfired. My book was banned in all the kingdoms, and I became a global pariah. As a punishment for my attempts, the Northern Kingdom sent a cavalcade of soldiers to my home in the in-between. They strapped my husband to a wooden post and burned him alive while they forced me to watch.
Horrence, Bristol gasped with large eyes. You're the witch from his story. Horrence tried to warn me before I came here. I didn't understand what he was saying at the time, but he was warning me about you. He was telling me that two things were about to become one. The carving in the wood, those were your initials?
Horrence, Marks, and Snowy Weatherbury, she said. But that feels like a lifetime ago.
Snowy is your real name? Bristol said. That can't be a coincidence.
No, it isn't. The fairies named me Snowy Celeste Weatherbury after my specialty. They said that I started causing storms the moment I was born.
Bristol had been so focused on discovering her own specialty that she never bothered to ask Madame Weatherbury what her specialty was. And now that she knew the answer, she couldn't believe she hadn't figured this out already. And not just because weather was in her name. On her first night at the academy, there was a horrible thunderstorm. You summoned that storm because you knew it would frighten us and bring us closer together, didn't you? And after Lucy and I went into the in-between, you sent another thunderstorm so that we wouldn't leave the castle while you were gone. And 2 days ago, you sent that snowflake to the academy so that I would come to the Northern Kingdom. You've been using weather to manipulate us from the beginning. The fairy nodded again. Bristol scrunched her forehead because something about Madame Weatherbury's story still wasn't adding up. But why did the fairies name you? Why'd the fairies name you? She asked. When you recruited Emeralda from the coal mine, you said that you were raised by a human family. You said they tried to kill you, and that's how you got the burns on your left arm.
I lied, Madame Weatherbury said. I only told you that story to convince Emeralda to join the academy. The burns on my arms didn't come from a fire. It was frostbite. The frostbite that covers me now is quite the same.
So you got those marks from using witchcraft, Bristol said? That's why you started covering yourselves with gloves and coats, and that's why you wouldn't let Mrs. V treat your wounds? The bruise I saw on your face, that was frostbite too, wasn't it? The more damage you cause as the Snow Queen, the more frostbite that covers you. Madam Weatherbury looked down at her bony, blackened hands and sighed with a heavy heart.
Correct, she said. And the more she covers me on the outside, the more she consumes me on the inside.
But what led you to witchcraft in the first place? Bristol asked. How did you go from writing the truth about magic to destroying an entire kingdom?
After Horrence was killed, I used witchcraft for the very first time to bring him back from the dead, she explained. The spell was a complete disaster. Horrence returned to the earth as an unnatural being, and my left arm was changed forever. But it wasn't only my arm that changed. I told you the witch in Horace's story died after she conjured that spell, but that wasn't entirely true, because part of me did die that day.
How so? Bristol asked.
My husband never committed a crime or hurt anyone in his life, but humankind murdered him simply to teach me a lesson. And indeed, I learned a very valuable lesson that day. I suddenly realized I had been foolish for believing the truth about magic was enough to change humanity's ways. They could never be persuaded by the logic or empathy of a book. The only way humankind was going to accept a magical community was to fear and need the magical community. We had to give them a problem, and then we had to be the solution. And as I laid eyes on my frostbitten skin for the very first time, I knew exactly what problem I had to create.
The Snow Queen?
Precisely, Madam Weatherbury said. To become the Snow Queen, I had to access all the anger that I had suppressed over the years, and just like your wand put you in touch with your magic, the scepter put me in touch with my rage. Unfortunately, there was so much fury waiting inside me that the task became overwhelming. Each time I picked up the scepter, the Snow Queen became stronger and stronger, and it became harder and harder to fight her off. I asked Felina, Nutelia, Squidella, and Crobeth to just join me and help me with the transitions, but the witches cared more about revenge than acceptance. They allowed the Snow Queen to control me because they used her like a weapon.
But then why didn't you stop? Bristol asked. If the Snow Queen was consuming you like this, then why did you keep returning to the Northern Kingdom?
Because the world wasn't taking her seriously, Madam Weatherbury said. My plan would only work if the whole world saw the Snow Queen as an unstoppable threat. It would take complete desperation for them to turn to witches and fairies for help. But King Nobleton consistently lied to the other monarchs about the destruction the Snow Queen had caused. So to gain the other sovereign's attention, I increased the attacks and made each one greater than the one before. However, it didn't matter how hard the Snow Queen struck the Northern Kingdom. The other monarchs ignored her. The only way King Champion, Queen Industria, and King Wardworth would ever acknowledge the Snow Queen was if her destruction went worldwide. And now you've covered the
kingdoms in a blizzard, Bristol said. You've given humankind the ultimate problem, so how is the magical community the solution? Who are they supposed to turn to for help? Madam Weatherbury hesitated before responding, and Bristol could tell the answer was going to be difficult to hear.
The Academy, she confessed.
What? Bristol gasped.
If the world had recognized the Snow Queen's first attack, I never would have had to involve anyone else, Madam Weatherbury said. I could have been the problem and the solution to my plan. But as the attacks continued, I realized the Snow Queen would likely devour me before I could complete my mission. So I recruited a coalition of fairies to finish what I had started in case I was compromised.
So that's the real reason that you started the Academy? Bristol asked in disbelief. You weren't training us to help and heal people, you were training us to be assassins?
I wasn't lying when I said I was teaching the greatest privilege of my life, Madam Weatherbury said. Watching you and the others flourish has brought me happiness like I have never known before. I'm deeply remorseful to put you in this position, but in order for us to succeed, I'm afraid that you have to fulfill the promises that you made me.
Bristol felt like her stomach had been yanked out of her body. Madam Weatherbury, no, she cried. I could never kill you.
Yes, you can, Madam Weatherbury said. When humankind learns that you have saved the world from global annihilation, they will finally have a reason to respect and accept the magical community. You and your classmates will lead the world into a new era where people like us will never have to hide in the shadows again, where they can live openly without fear, and they'll never be crippled by their anger again.
No, Bristol said. There has to be another way.
This is the only way, Madam Weatherbury said. Believe me, I wish there was an easier path to take, but this is the greatest opportunity that fairies and witches have had in centuries. If we don't do this now, it may be another millennia before we have a second chance.
No, we have to find a better solution, Bristol said. Come back to the academy. We'll find a way to cure you from the Snow Queen.
It's too late for that, Madam Weatherbury said. Scepter or no scepter, the Snow Queen has consumed me past the point of no return. I have had days, maybe hours, before she takes me over completely, and I don't want to spend the rest of my life imprisoned inside her.
Madam Weatherbury raised Bristol's wrist so that the tip of her wand was pointing at her teacher's frostbitten forehead.
Please, I'm begging you, the fairy said.
No, I can't do this.
We don't have a choice.
I'm sorry, Madam Weatherbury, but
You will never be able to defeat me, you stupid, incompetent girl!
Suddenly, the Snow Queen resurfaced in Madam Weatherbury's body. The witch wrapped her hands around Bristol's throat and started choking her again. Bristol couldn't breathe. Her vision blurred, and she started losing consciousness. If she didn't act fast, she would die in the Snow Queen's hands. Bristol raised her wand and pointed it at the witch and made a decision that she would regret for the rest of her life. Bam! A bright and powerful blast erupted from Bristol's wand and hit the Snow Queen directly in the chest. The witch flew across the dining hall and landed hard on the floor. Bristol kept her wand raised cautiously as she approached the Snow Queen's motionless body. The witch's eyes fluttered open, but instead of seeing the Snow Queen's glowing red gaze, Madam Weatherbury's eyes returned.
What just happened? She asked.
I made my decision, Bristol said, and I am not killing anyone.
You should have finished her. All of this could be over by now.
You might be right, Bristol said, and later I may regret sparing you, but I'm not nearly as much as I would regret ending your life. I'll never understand why you chose violence as a road to peace, and I'll never understand why you chose fear as a remedy to hate, but I will not repeat your mistakes. If I am going to continue down the path that you've paved, then I'm going to walk it at my own pace.
Bristol, humankind will need proof that you slayed the Snow Queen. My death is the only way that you can earn their trust.
You're wrong, Bristol said. You don't have to die for your plan to succeed. On the contrary, all the destruction you've caused, all the fear you've instilled, and all the lives that you've taken, they'll be meaningless without you.
What are you talking about? Madam Weatherbury asked.
You said it yourself. The only way that humankind will respect and accept the magical community is if we need the magical community, Bristol explained. But the minute the Snow Queen is destroyed, humankind won't need us anymore. They'll forget that she ever existed. They'll rewrite history to say they were the ones who conquered her, and the world will go back to hating fairies and witches just like they did before. But if you stay alive and keep the world in fear of the Snow Queen striking again, then the magical community will always have leverage over humankind.
But I can't keep fighting her like this,
Madam Weatherbury said. I don't believe that for a second, Bristol said. You said you only have days or hours before the Snow Queen consumes you completely. Well, I say you have years or decades left in you. You're just giving up because you don't want to fight her anymore. But Madam Weatherbury, I know, the Madam Weatherbury I know and love would never let me quit like this, and I'm not going to let you either.
But what do you suggest I do? Where do you suggest I go?
I suggest that you use whatever strength and time you have left to get as far away from civilization as possible. Take yourself deep into the northern mountains, like lost in a cave somewhere. Find a place so far removed that not even the map of magic would detect you. Send a gentle snowstorm through the kingdoms every now and then remind humankind that you're still around. But whatever you do, just keep yourself alive.
But if she consumes me and returns,
Then we'll be ready for her, Bristol said. We'll find other fairies around the world and recruit them to the academy. We'll train them using the lessons that you've taught us and prepare to face her. We'll create such a strong coalition of fairies that the Snow Queen will never stand a chance against us. The front doors of Tinsel Palace creaked open, and the sound of several sets of footsteps echoed through the corridor. Lucy, Emeralda, Xanthos, Tangerina, and Skylene entered the royal residence, and Bristol could hear their hushed voices as they searched for her.
it's your classmates, Madame Weatherbury said. They can't see me like this. If they discover the truth, they'll be devastated and they'll lose faith in everything that I've taught them.
Then don't let them, Bristol said. Follow my plan. Leave the palace before they see you.
But what will you tell them? They can never know what I've done.
I'll tell them the truth, Bristol said. I'll say that after a long battle, the Snow Queen finally overpowered you, and that you managed to scare her off and send her into seclusion first, and that's all that they need to know. The classmates' footsteps were growing closer in the corridor outside the dining hall. Madame Weatherbury looked back and forth between Bristol's pleading face and the open doorway, and she couldn't decide what to do. Please, Madame Weatherbury, Bristol said. I know that this isn't what you planned, but I know this is what's best for all of us, and that is a promise that I can keep forever. There wasn't time to think of a better option. Madame Weatherbury let out a deep sigh that came from the bottom of her weary soul, and she accepted Bristol's proposal.
Look for the northern lights, the fairy said.
What do you mean? Bristol asked.
The lights will be my signal to you, Madame Weatherbury said. As long as there are northern lights in the sky, you'll know that I'm winning the fight. And the minute they disappear, it means the Snow Queen is coming back.
All right, Bristol said. I'll watch the lights.
Good, the fairy said. Now help me to the door in the corner. I'll sneak out the servants' corridor before the others find me.
Bristol helped Madame Weatherbury to her feet and escorted her to the door in the corner of the dining hall. Before the fairy left, she had one final thing to say. Madame Weatherbury grasped Bristol's hand and looked into her eyes with a grave expression.
Listen carefully, Bristol, because this is the most important lesson I will ever teach you, she said. Don't make the same mistakes I made. No matter how cruel or unfair the world becomes, never forfeit your happiness. And no matter how poorly someone treats you, never let anyone's hate rob you of your compassion. The battle of good and evil isn't fought on a battlefield. It begins in each and every one of us. Don't let your anger choose sides for you.
As Madame Weatherbury slipped into the servants' corridor, the classmates charged into the dining hall. They were panting and frantically looked around the room in fear, but they were relieved to see that Bristol was safe. Oh, thank God, Lucy exclaimed. I was afraid I'd have to perform a tambourine recital at your funeral. I'm fine, Bristol said, and I'm glad you guys are too. Where's the Snow Queen? Xanthos asked. She surrendered and fled into the mountains, Bristol said. The classmates were overjoyed to hear this and hugged one another in celebration, but Bristol looked to the floor and her face filled with sadness. Bristol, what's wrong? Skylene asked. This is wonderful news, Tangerina said. Isn't it? Wait a second, Emeralda said. Where's Madame Weatherbury? Did you find her? Bristol lowered her head and burst into tears. It wasn't until she was asked about Madame Weatherbury that the truth had finally caught up to her. She's gone, Bristol cried. She's gone. I have to tell you something. It is a testament to my absolute expertise as an actor that I was able to hold a straight face and continue reading when Jack said, "Some people just collect stamps." I saw it, and I almost lost it. But I held it together because it was a serious moment and I wasn't trying to break. Hello, Lorenzo. That alone should win me an Academy Award because that was hysterical. Absolutely hysterical. And I almost busted up laughing. I came really close. It was almost over for me because some of us just collect stamps is an amazing line. Oh my God. Okay, we have to keep going. We have to keep going. Chapter 21 is called Demands. A powerful and unexpected blizzard plowed through the Southern Kingdom for 5 days straight. Such a storm had never occurred in the kingdom before, and all the citizens were trapped inside their homes as they waited for the icy winds and endless snow to subside. Without any time to prepare for the catastrophic weather, the country's people found themselves in the midst of a natural disaster. Property was severely damaged, farms lost nearly all their crops and livestock, and soon families ran out of firewood and had to burn pieces of furniture to stay warm. Some people collect stamps. Drugs. As the Southern Kingdom entered its 5th day of the terrible blizzard, many began to fear the horrific storm would last forever. However, shortly before midnight, the wind began to die down and the snow started to disappear and the clouds cleared from the sky. The weather went completely back to normal, as if nothing had ever happened. In the eastern countryside of Chariot Hills, the storm had been gone for less than an hour when Justice Evergreen received a mysterious knock on his front door. He answered the door in his pajamas and was surprised to see a royal carriage waiting for him outside.
"Oh, what's going on?"
Justice Evergreen asked.
"King Champion is holding an emergency meeting at the castle, sir," the coachman said. "He's asked for all the high justices and justices to join him at once."
Without a doubt, Justice Evergreen knew that a meeting was being called to discuss the recent storm. He quickly got dressed in his long black robe and tall square hat and climbed aboard the carriage. By the time he arrived at the castle, the king's throne room was buzzing with high justices and justices alike.
"How is this kingdom going to recover from this?" High Justice Montclair asked. "It's going to take a massive amount of money to rebuild all the damages, and all the treasury is already low on funding as it is."
One by one, the other justices gave Montclair their recommendation. Perhaps we can ask the king to sell one of his summer palaces."
"No, His Majesty will never approve that," Montclair said.
Well, perhaps we can start a war with the Eastern Kingdom and take their resources.
"No, that would take too long, and there's no reason to stage a war," Montclair said.
Perhaps we can reduce our salaries until the kingdom is on the mend.
"Now that is out of the question," Montclair said. "Come on, men! We've got to come up with one decent suggestion before the king arrives."
The sinister Justice Olregade glared at his colleagues from the corner of the room. He scratched the stone wall with his long fingernail to get the men's attention. Ow, I could hear that in my ears, and that hurts. The sound sent painful shivers through their bodies, and all the justices covered their ears. Yeah, I could feel it. You didn't even have to tell me that that was going to hurt. Yikes.
"Yes, Olregade?" Montclair asked. "What is your suggestion?" "I believe now's the best time to implement the poor tax that I've been advocating," Olregade said.
Justice Evergreen scoffed loudly at his rival.
"That's the most absurd recommendation I've heard," he said. "The poor have no money to collect as it is. That's why they're called the poor."
"Thank you, Justice Evergreen, but I know what poor means," Olregade sneered. "But money isn't the only way to fix this predicament. By introducing a poor tax, the poor throughout the Southern Kingdom would immediately be charged with tax evasion. However, instead of sentencing them to prison time, we'll sentence them to community service, and we'll have all the free labor we need to restore the kingdom." The justices nodded as they considered the tax and then cheered for Olregade's calculating proposition.
"Well, that's a wonderful idea," Montclair said. "Now, how are we going to explain the blizzard to our people? They'll want to know what caused such a strange phenomenon."
Perhaps we employ the scientists to investigate the matter?
"No, that's the last thing government needs, more science," Montclair said.
Perhaps we frame it as an act from God?
Well, yes. That's better, Montclair said. But why did God do it? Who should he be mad at this time?
Perhaps God is mad at cat lovers.
No, that won't work because I have a cat, Montclair said.
Perhaps God is mad at vegetarians.
No, most of our cattle perished in the storm, Montclair said. We can't have people fighting over food in the name of God. We tried that once and it led to complete chaos.
Once again, Justice Olvergade scratched the stone wall with his long fingernails.
Olvergade, just raise your hand if you have a suggestion, Montclair reprimanded. Noted for the future, Olvergade said. I was going to recommend that we tell our kingdom that God is mad at the poor. If we amend the Book of Faith and make poverty a sin, we'll save ourselves from any potential backlash for enforcing the poor tax. Another wonderful idea, Montclair declared. We shall share your proposals with His Majesty as soon as he...
The doors leading to the sovereign's private office swung open, and King Champion joined the justices in the throne room. The men bowed to the monarch as the king crossed the room and sat on his throne. The sovereign was instantly irritated by the justices around him, and he let out a disgruntled sigh.
Good morning, Your Majesty, Montclair said. Your timing is perfect as usual. The other justices and I have created a plan of action to address the recent...
That won't be necessary, the King Champion stated. I have already made arrangements. Nervous whispering broke out among the justices. They didn't like it when the king made decisions without them.
Sir, as the head of your advisory council, I must insist that you share your arrangements with any of us before making them official, Montclair said. I didn't call you here to insist anything. I called you here to listen, King Champion stated. There's no easy way to start this discussion, so I'll start by stating the facts. For the last several months, the Northern Kingdom has been under attack by a very powerful witch known as the Snow Queen. To prevent global hysteria, King Nobleton kept the matter a secret. But by the time he informed the other sovereigns about the Snow Queen, she had destroyed more than half of the Northern Kingdom. But Nobleton wasn't honest with us about the extent of her destruction. He assured us that he could handle the situation, so we did nothing and left it to him. Now Nobleton is dead, and all but one village in his entire kingdom has been lost. This week,
Really? Really? Come on. There we go. It took me 3 tries to prove that I was real. It's fun.
This week, the Southern Kingdom almost suffered the same fate as the North, but fortunately for all of us, the Snow Queen was stopped before her blizzard obliterated us.
The news made all the justices uneasy, and they gazed at one another in fear.
Pardon me, sir, Montclair said, but are you saying a witch caused the blizzard?
Oh, good.
Now you're listening, King Champion quipped. Early last week, the Snow Queen's destruction spread beyond the Northern Kingdom. Not only did the storm seep into our kingdom, but it stretched to all 4 corners of the continent. But what or who stopped her? Montclair asked. King Champion glared at his advisors with a cocky grin. Well, technically I did, he said. Several months ago, I was paid a visit by a woman named Madame Weatherberry. She was starting an academy of magic and came to the castle without warning and asked me for permission to recruit children from the Southern Kingdom. Naturally, I rejected her request, but then Madame Weatherberry informed me about the seriousness of the Snow Queen's power. She convinced me her future students would defeat the Snow Queen if the witch ever crossed into the Southern Kingdom. In a moment of what I now consider to be nothing short of brilliant, I decided to grant Madame Weatherberry her permission. And it just so happens those students were exactly who stopped the Snow Queen and saved us from her icy wrath. High Justice Montclair led the room into an enthusiastic round of applause for the king. The sovereign rolled his eyes and silenced the men with his hands. Although the Snow Queen was stopped, the witch does remain at large, King Champion said. Madame Weatherberry unfortunately passed away during the ordeal, but
Her students survived. They've agreed to restore our kingdom with magic and continue protecting us from the Snow Queen. However, in exchange for their services, the children did have a few demands.
Demands? Montclair asked. What sort of demands?
King Champion turned toward the doorway of his private office. "Come on out," the king called. "The justices have been prepared." Suddenly, the room of older men in black robes parted as a group of very colorful children emerged from the office. Bristol, Lucy, Emeralda, Xanthos, Tangerina, and Skylene made their way through the room and stood at the king's side. The justices were outraged to see members of the magical community in a royal residence. They shouted profanities and insults at the children, but the classmates ignored the men's outbursts and held their heads high. It was difficult for Bristol to stand in a room with so many men who had personally tried to oppress her, but she did not let an ounce of it show. On the contrary, Bristol made a point to look at Justice Montclair, Justice Olrogade, and Justice Evergreen directly in the eye, so they knew she wasn't afraid of them. She had changed so much since her father last saw her, it took him a few moments to recognize his own daughter. Despite all Justice Evergreen's efforts, Bristol had become calm, confident, and a dignified young woman. His mouth dropped open in shock.
Will the young lady please inform the justices about the demands we've been discussing? King Champion asked.
Bristol waved her wand, and a long golden scroll appeared in her hand. Inscribed on the document were the demands they'd given the king. The classmates passed the scroll around, and each took turns reading their demands aloud. "Number 1, Bristol said, magic will be officially legalized in the Southern Kingdom. All prisoners who have been convicted of non-offensive magic or who are waiting to stand trial for non-offensive magic will be released from the prisons and workhouses across the kingdom. This also includes privately owned detention centers such as the Bootstrap Correctional Facility. The Southern Kingdom will now create social programs to diminish the discrimination directed at magic. However, if anyone in the magical community would like to develop their abilities, you'll invite them to join us at the Celeste Weatherbury Memorial Academy of Magic in the southeast in between. A knight named Horace will be waiting to safely escort them through the woods." Number 2, Emeralda read as she took the scroll from Bristol. "The in-between will be divided into equally proportioned territories for the people and creatures living there. The west will be given to the dwarfs, the northwest will be given to the elves, the southwest will be given to the ogres, and the northeast will be given to the goblins. The southeast will be given to the magical community, and the rest will be given to the trolls. The Southern Kingdom will also send food, medical supplies, building equipment, and other provisions to those territories so they never fight over resources again." Number 3, Xanthos read, "The Southern Kingdom will establish education and employment equality. You'll abolish the law prohibiting women from reading, joining libraries, or pursuing any profession they desire. Boys and girls can attend any school they wish, including the University of Law and the Chariot Hill School for Future Wives and Mothers." Number 4, Skylene read, "Starting today, the original Book of Faith will be the only Book of Faith that the Southern Kingdom officials are allowed to reference. The High Justices will no longer be able to make amendments or manipulate religion to serve their political agenda. Furthermore, attending services at the Chariot Hills Cathedral or any other place of worship is strictly optional and no longer a requirement." Number 5, Tangerina read, "All banned books will be reprinted and made available to the public. You will also issue public apologies to the families of all the authors that you've silenced, and you'll make your citizens aware of the means and methods you use to find and terminate them." Number 6, Lucy said, "All rules and restrictions related to creative freedom and artistic expression will be removed from the law. Also, the tambourine will be regarded as the official instrument of the Southern Kingdom, and all the citizens will be required to play it for a minimum of..." Tangerina snapped the scroll out of Lucy's hands before she went any further. "She's making that last part about the tambourine up," Tangerina told men, "but the rest is true. The rest is in there." Once the classmates finished reading the scroll of their demands, the throne room erupted with objections. The justices screamed their disagreements and reservations until all the men had turned bright red.
"This is outrageous! They have no right to order us around. These heathens! How dare they demand anything? They belong in prison, not a throne room! We will never take commands from the likes of them."
Bristol raised her hand toward the ceiling, and a bright, thunderous blast erupted from the tip of her wand. All the justices went silent and cowered away from her. "All of this is your fault!" Bristol shouted. If you had created a world where everyone was treated equally, a world that valued people's differences, and a world that recognized the potential in each citizen, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. But you spent your entire careers fueling the hate and discrimination and oppression that gave birth to the Snow Queen. Her frost is on your hands. So if you expect us to clean up the mess you've made, then you will follow our demands. And if you don't, then I suggest you can all go coat shopping, gentlemen, because you're in for a very, very long winter. The justices were left speechless by Bristol's remarks. It was rare for anyone to give these men an ultimatum, but a young woman had never spoken to them like that before. Lucy tried to start a slow clap for her friend, but her classmates did not think it was an appropriate time.
Your Majesty, you can't seriously be considering these demands, Montclair asked. I've already agreed to them, King Champion announced. Without consulting us? Montclair asked in shock. Yes, Montclair, without you, King Champion sneered. As the current situation has proven, I tend to make my best decisions when the justices aren't around. King Warworth, Queen Industria, and King White have already signed these demands into law in their kingdoms, and starting tomorrow, the Southern Kingdom will do the same.
Who's King White? Olvergade asked. The newly appointed sovereign of the Northern Kingdom, the king explained. By whose authority? Olvergade pressed. By our authority, Lucy declared. And would it kill you to take a bath and cut your dang nails? I thought you were a sloth until you opened your mouth. Olvergade crossed his arms and fumed in the corner. And what are we supposed to call you? Montclair asked the classmates, besides the 6 bossiest children on the planet. Bristol and her friends stared at the men with blank expressions. They hadn't decided on a name for themselves yet. Before they seemed unprepared, Bristol chose the first name that came to mind. You can call us the Fairy Council, she said. And if you'll excuse us, we have a kingdom to rebuild and a world to save. Bristol triumphantly led her classmates through the throne room, and they headed for the door. As they went, Justice Evergreen followed his daughter and desperately tried to get her attention. Bristol, wait! Justice Evergreen called her. Bristol, slow down! She had absolutely nothing to say to her father, and so she ignored him and kept walking. Justice Evergreen was embarrassed to be so blatantly disrespected in front of his colleagues. He lost his temper and forcefully grabbed hold of his daughter's arm. Bristol Lynn Evergreen, you stop this instant, he roared. I will not be ignored by my own daughter. Everyone in the throne room went silent and still. Even King Champion grew tense on his throne. Justice Evergreen's words got under Bristol's skin. Her father had never claimed her as family before, but now that she had saved the world, he suddenly wanted to know she was his daughter. She yanked her arm out of his grip and whipped around to face him. She raised her wand threateningly toward his throat. For the first time in his life, Justice Evergreen was afraid of his daughter, and he slowly backed away from her. That is the last time you will ever lay hands on me, Bristol said, and don't you dare address me as daughter. You're no father of mine.
Damn! Damn! She really went there. She really went there. She really went there.
She said, don't touch me, babe. Don't do it. I really do hope she goes to see her mom, though. You know, mom's a good egg.
Right? Seriously, Amanda. Big time. Yeah. All of us, right?
Raise your hand if you don't have a dad.
Yeah.
Chapter 22. Here it is. You guys ready? This is it. The Tale of Magic. A stampede of unicorns raced through the in-between with dozens and dozens of young women on their backs. The majestic steeds retrieved all the workers from the Bootstrap Correctional Facility and transported them to the Celeste Weatherbear Memorial Academy of Magic. The exhausted and emaciated girls were completely rejuvenated and enchanted by the enchanted creatures beneath them. Many of them laughed and cheered for the first time in years, some of them for the first time in their lives, and they looked at the thick woods around them with wide eyes and excited grins. Within 2 hours of their departure, the unicorns were crossing through the hedge barrier, and the young women laid eyes on the Academy's picturesque property for the first time. They were absolutely astonished by all the colorful trees, flowers, and crystal clear streams and lakes and sparkling oceans on the horizon, the soaring griffins, the fluttering pixies, and the bright blue sky. The unicorns unloaded their passengers in the castle's front steps, where Bristol, Lucy, Emerald, Xanthos, Tangerina, Skyline, and Mrs. V were eagerly awaiting the new arrivals. Is Grace here? I don't even know if Grace is here. Pip! Bristol exclaimed. She instantly spotted her small friend among the newcomers and ran down the front steps to give her a big, welcoming hug. I'm so happy to see you, Bristol said. I've thought about you every day since I left that facility. I hope you're all right.
I'm doing much better now that I'm here, Pip said.
Did those awful Edgars treat you terribly when I left? Bristol asked.
Nothing I wasn't used to, Pip said with a shrug. You should have seen Mr. and Mrs. Edgar's faces when they got the commands to release us from the facility, though. They had just accepted orders from the Eastern Kingdom for 5,000 pairs of boots, and now they have to make them all themselves.
Bristol laughed. I normally don't find pleasure in someone else's misfortune, but just this once I think it's okay to relish in it, she said. Pip stared up at the castle, mesmerized by the shimmering golden walls.
I can't believe you did it, she said.
Did what? Bristol asked.
You found a house by the ocean, Pip said. It's even better than the one we used to dream about.
Yeah, it's a wonderful place to live, Bristol said. I think you're going to be really happy here.
I already am, Pip said.
Once all the girls had climbed down from the unicorns, Bristol went to the top of the castle's front steps to greet them. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Celeste Weatherbury Memorial Academy of Magic, she said. Allow me to introduce you to my friends, Mrs. V, Lucy Goose, Emeralda Stone, Xanthos Hayfield, Tangerina Turkin, and Skyline Lavenders. You may call me Madam Lavenders, Skyline told the girls. For those of you who don't remember me from the Bootstrap Correctional Facility, my name is Bristol Evergreen, she said. Oh, we remember you, a girl said. How can we forget? Another said. Okay, well, I'm happy we're all reunited, she said. This academy was founded by our dearly departed mentor, Madam Weatherbury, and it's thanks to her that we have a place to learn and grow. We're going to honor Madam Weatherbury's legacy by helping you improve and expand your magical abilities. And once you've mastered your skills, we'll venture beyond the academy and use our magic to help and heal the people who need us. Over the next few weeks, we'll be teaching you about the 5 categories of magic: improvement, manifestation, rehabilitation, imagination, and protection. Oh, sorry, wrong voice. That was Emeralda, but pretend I did in her voice. But before we give you a tour of the castle or the grounds, we wanted to share a couple of rules that we expect you to follow while you're staying at the academy. Rule number 1, Xanthos said, never leave the academy grounds without an instructor. Rule number 2, Tangerina said, always treat everyone with respect. Rule number 3, Skyline said, don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's what learning's all about. Yeah, rule number 4, don't do anything I would do, Lucy said. After the rules were announced, a loud rumbling came from above and everyone gazed up at the castle. A large tower suddenly grew out of the 3rd floor corridor with enough bedrooms to accommodate all the young women joining the academy. Well, it looks like your rooms are ready for you, Mrs. V said. Before you get settled, you're going to follow me straight to the dining room for a much-needed meal. But let me warn you from personal experience, if anyone in the castle except for me offers you food, you better run as fast as you can. The bubbly housekeeper led the young women up the front steps and into their new home. Bristol, Lucy, Emeralda, Xanthos, Tangerina, and Skyline beamed with pride as they watched their new pupils enter the academy. I can't believe that we have students, Skyline said. Yeah, me neither, Lucy said. Do you think we're responsible enough for this? Maybe we should have started with a plant or a goldfish first. I think we're going to be fine, Tangerina said. I love telling people what to do. No, I think this means we've officially graduated and we're fairies now, Emeralda said. Wait, sorry, I missed something. I love telling people what to do. Wait a second, Xanthos asked. If we're the teachers, then I suppose we're not classmates anymore, are we? No, I believe this means we've officially graduated to being fairies, Emeralda said. We're not just fairies, Skyline teased. We're the Fairy Council, remember? It's a shame Bristol didn't come up with a better name, Lucy said. I have a feeling that that one's gonna stick around for a while. The fairies shared a laugh with one another, but Bristol wasn't paying attention. She was gazing across the property, watching the hedge barrier with disappointment. Uh-oh, Lucy said. Bristol's doing it again. Doing what? She said. You're sadly staring off into the distance, Xanthos said. You do it all the time. I do? Bristol asked. Oh, yeah, Tangerina said. And now we're going to have to spend a minimum of 5 minutes convincing you to tell us what's on your mind. Well, I just don't want you to trouble us with your concerns, Emeralda asked. We know, but the funny thing is you trouble us more by keeping us in suspense. So just spit it out already? Skylene said. Bristol blushed at the other's playful comments and grinned against her will. You know, having such close friends can be a real nuisance sometimes, she said. I was hoping more people would be here by now, and that's why I looked sad. Magic has been legalized for the first time in centuries. I thought that people would be, like, rushing to join the academy. But I suppose the magical community isn't ready to come out of the shadows just yet.
Yeah, everyone comes out in their own time, Xanthos said. We just gotta stay patient and positive and keep letting them know that we'll be here when they're ready.
Bristol nodded. You're right, Xanthos, she said. You're absolutely right. And after the new students enjoyed a hearty meal in the dining room, the fairies helped the girls get situated in their bedrooms. Once everyone was settled in, Bristol headed downstairs to continue watching the hedge barrier for any other guests who might be on their way. As she descended the floating staircase, the doors of Madame Weatherbury's office caught the corner of her eye. Bristol had been avoiding the office ever since she returned to the academy. She wanted to believe that Madame Weatherbury was still inside, and she convinced herself that a part of the fairy would always be there if they just kept the doors shut. Bristol pictured the fairy sitting behind her desk, eagerly waiting for a troubled pupil to knock on the door and solicit her comforting words of wisdom. However, now that Madame Weatherbury was gone, the new students would be coming to Bristol for advice, and an empty office wasn't going to do anyone any good, so she forced herself to push open the wooden doors and stepped inside. Everything in the office, the clouds drifting along the high ceiling, the bubbles floating out from the fireplace, the shelves of spell books, the cabinets of potion, the glass furniture, were all exactly as Madame Weatherbury had left it. The only difference was the missing piece of the map of magic that Bristol had cut out. She waved her wand, and the missing chunk of the Northern Kingdom reappeared. Just as they planned, Madame Weatherbury had found someplace so secluded in the Northern Mountains that no trace of her appeared on the map. Bristol pointed her wand at the corner of the office, and a large globe appeared. However, unlike a regular globe, Bristol's globe showed her what the planet looked like from space. She spun the globe to inspect the Northern Kingdom, and was pleased to see a small patch of northern lights glimmering through the Northern Mountains. "Hello, Madame Weatherbury," Bristol whispered to the globe. "I hope you're well." Bristol crossed to the window and checked the hedge barrier in the distance, but there still wasn't any sign of anyone from the magical community. She let out a long sigh and sat down behind Madame Weatherbury's glass desk. It was a subconscious decision to sit in her teacher's former seat, but once she realized where she'd placed herself, Bristol quickly leapt to her feet. She was not ready for that significance just yet. "So I guess this is your office now, eh?" The unexpected voice startled Bristol, and she looked across the office and saw Lucy standing in the doorway. "Yeah, I guess it is," Bristol said. "The castle still feels so weird without her, doesn't it? I wonder if it'll always feel like something's missing." "Yeah, probably," Lucy said. "Lucky for us, Madame Weatherbury cast herself a wonderful understudy before she left." "Thanks," Bristol said. "I hope I can live up to the task." "Don't worry, I got enough faith in you for the both of us," Lucy said. She and Bristol exchanged a sweet smile for a split second, and Lucy made Bristol feel like she belonged behind Madame Weatherbury's desk. Lucy, on the other hand, had no problem sitting in the teacher's seat. She made herself comfortable in the glass chair and kicked her feet up onto the desk. "Everything is going to be different for you now," Lucy said. "Personally, I think I'm going to enjoy being best friends with the most powerful person in the world. Every world leader needs at least one controversial friend, and I can keep the public distracted if you're ever facing a scandal." "Oh, please," Bristol said. "I'm not the most powerful person in the world." "Of course you are," Lucy said. "Did you hear yourself bossing those justices around? You got them and the sovereigns in the palm of your hand. They're so afraid of the Snow Queen they're going to do anything you tell them to." "Oh my gosh, you're right," Bristol said in disbelief. "In just a couple of months, I've gone from a schoolgirl to the leader of the free world. How did that happen?" "It's one heck of a political climb," Lucy said. "What are we going to call you now that you're so powerful? If you ask me, there's no point in having power unless it comes with a fancy title. How about Commander of Magic?" Now that sounds like a romance novel. "Chancellor of Fairies?" Now that's the terrible name of a one-man show I saw once. "The Fairy Empress?" Now it sounds like a perfume. "Fairy Overlord?" Too pompous. "Oh, I know. What about the Fairy Godmother? To me it says, yes, I'm a nice person, but I also mean business." "I'm not really ready for a title," Bristol said. "I still can't believe I'm even in charge of the academy. I'm going to need a few days before I can accept that I'm also the..." Bristol went quiet before she finished her sentence. She suddenly realized that she was much more prepared for the unexpected position than she thought she was. Actually, I did know this day was coming, she thought aloud. Despite all those years I was told I didn't matter, despite all the people who told me I'd never amount to anything, I always knew I was destined for something great. It makes no sense why a girl living in the Southern Kingdom would even believe such things. At the time, we were only allowed to be wives and mothers, but if I hadn't been for those encouraging little voices inside me, I might not have made it this far. In a way, I feel like everything in my life's been preparing me for this moment. Perhaps that's been my specialty all along. The faith that I had in myself.
Nah, now you just sound like narcissism, Lucy said. I figured out your specialty a long time ago. I'm really surprised you haven't figured it out.
Well, she asked, well, then what is it?
Think about all those times you put others before yourself, Lucy said. You helped your brother study for an examination you weren't even allowed to take. You took the fall for Pip when she got caught borrowing blankets in the facility. You spent your first night in the academy reading Tales of Tibbet the Twitch to the others so that they wouldn't be frightened of a thunderstorm. You baked me a whole cake from scratch just so I feel welcomed here. And then, when I ran away, you went into a dangerous forest to find me. Even now, instead of letting your newfound power corrupt you, you're focusing all your efforts on making the world a better place. Obviously, you have a specialty for compassion.
Bristol was touched by Lucy's words. Do you really think I have a specialty for compassion? She asked. You're not just sucking up to me because I'm a fairy godmother or something like that, are you?
No, I mean it, Lucy said with a confident nod. Otherwise, it would just be weird how much you care about helping people.
And just then, the wooden doors swung open, and Emeralda, Xanthos, Tangerina, and Skylene charged into the office. The young fairy's cheeks were bright red, and they were all panting as though they'd been running. Oh my god, there you are, Emeralda said. We've been looking all over the castle for you.
Bristol, you should come outside, Xanthos said, like, now.
Why? What's wrong? She asked. Are the students okay? Oh yeah, the students are fine, Tangerina said. People from the magical community have started showing up. That's wonderful, Bristol exclaimed. How many have joined us so far? A dozen? 10? Please tell me it's at least 5. Skylene said with some difficulty. I'm not the best with numbers, but I would say it's more like all of them. Bristol thought her friends were playing a practical joke on her, but the look on their overwhelmed eyes didn't waver. She turned to the enlarged map of magic above the fireplace and was stunned to see that the majority of the stars were moving through the southeast in-between and toward the academy. Bristol ran to the window and looked over the hedge barrier in the distance and gasped at what she saw. At the edge of the property, Horrence and his 3-headed horse had crossed through the barrier, and people were followed and was followed by a line of hundreds and hundreds of people. The line kept coming and coming until they were almost 1,000 members of the magical community inside the academy grounds. The travelers were both young and old. Some traveled in groups or families, others traveled completely alone, and they had clearly journeyed from places near and far. Most had recently been released from prison, while others had spent their entire lives on the run or in hiding. Regardless of their differences, and each and every person wore the same expression of sheer amazement as they gazed around the property, not just because of the vibrant plants and enchanted animals, but for the first time in their lives, the magical community was laying eyes on a place where they would be safe from persecution, a place where they could be themselves without discrimination, and most importantly, a place that they could finally call home. We are going to need a much bigger castle, Bristol said.
Yeah, and name tags, Lucy said. Lots and lots of name tags.
Without wasting another second, Bristol, Lucy, Emeralda, Xanthos, Tangerina, Skylene hurried out of the office and ran down the floating staircase. They emerged on the castle's front steps to greet the newcomers. The travelers gathered around the castle and looked up to the fairies for guidance. Psst! Bristol, Lucy whispered. Say something. What should I say? She whispered back. I don't know, Lucy said. Something inspirational, like you always do. Bristol's friends nudged her forward and nervously waved at the large crowd. She looked out into all the hopeful, weary eyes of the magical community, and Bristol was reminded of her final moments with Madame Weatherbury, and she knew exactly what she wanted to say. Hello, everyone, she said. I can only imagine what you've all been through to get here today, both in life and on the road. This historical day is possible thanks to a long history of brave men and women making tremendous sacrifices. And although the fight for acceptance and freedom may seem like it's over, our work isn't finished. The world will never be a better place for us until we make it a better place for all. And no matter what challenge awaits us, no matter whose favor we have yet to earn, we cannot allow anyone's hate to rob us of our compassion or dampen our ambition along the way. The truth is, Bristol continued, There will always be a fight. There will always be bridges to cross and stones to turn, but we must never forfeit our joy to the times we live in. When we surrender our ability to be happy, we become as flawed as the battles we face, and too many lives have already been lost for us to lose sight of what we're fighting for now. So let's honor the people who gave their lives for this moment to happen, and let's cherish their memory by living each and every day as freely, proudly, and joyfully as they would have wanted us to. Together, let's begin a new chapter for our community, so when they tell our story in years in the future, A Tale of Magic has a happy and prosperous ending. That's very sweet. Very sweet. Yeah, for sure, Nisa, for sure. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Well, that was a marathon. Those were 3 very long chapters. Well, one of the chapters was very long. The other 2 were just normal length. It was wild. Oh, goodness gracious. Goodness gracious. Yes, Nisa, I will. I will. Very emotionally heavy. So we need to decide something. Here's the thing. Obviously, we still have book club tomorrow. The second book is called A Tale of Witchcraft. I ordered the next 2 already. They should be delivered by Monday. I downloaded 2 things onto my Kindle for us to read because we still have 3 days left of book club before we have a little hiatus. Here's the thing. Chris Colfer has a memoir. I downloaded it from the library onto my Kindle. So if we want, we could read the memoir as like an in-between thing so that we don't stop in the middle of the book. But if you guys would rather go right into A Tale of Witchcraft, that's amazing, Nakia. Oh my gosh, what show? We can jump right in because I downloaded A Tale of Witchcraft on my Kindle. So we can start it tomorrow even though the physical book doesn't come till Monday. Or we could read his memoir. Or we could read the 2 books and then read his memoir. I mean, like, it's up to you guys. You know what I mean? But nonsense, that's so funny. Yeah, I mean, the memoir might be like a nice little palate cleanser and then we can read The Tale of Witchcraft after, you know? Yeah, I was thinking that might be fun, right? We love him anyway, right? We might as well learn a little more about him. It's not a long one, I don't think. Hold on. Let me look and see. You guys see how my little Kindle is decorated? Let me look and see. It's called Stranger Than Fiction. And let's see how many chapters it has. It's downloading. I thought it was already downloaded, but let's see. Oh, excuse me. It's called Stranger Than Fan Fiction. That's funny. It's called Stranger Than Fan Fiction. How can I get the... Oops, no, I don't want to do that. Don't. So there's... I mean, there's 23 chapters, but... But I don't think it's like long ones. Oh yeah, I got that idea from Liz. It works really well. It works really, really well. Yeah. So if you guys want, we can do this and then start A Tale of Witchcraft after. It seems like a really nice thing to do, you know? That way we're not stopping in the middle of like a story when we have the hiatus, you know what I mean? We'll be stopping in the middle of his memoir, but like, it should be fun. So that sounds fun. I hope you guys all had a great time with our marathon bachelorette book club. You're really good at breaking pop sockets. Oh, I only have this one. Yeah, literally, Nisa. Why are we having a hiatus? We're having a hiatus next week because I'm getting married on Wednesday and I won't really have time to do it in the morning. And then on Thursday, we are going to Vegas for the weekend just as like a little like post-wedding getaway thing, you know. It's really like quick and cheap to go to Vegas from California. It's like $80 on the plane. So we were just like, oh, let's just pop over there for the weekend, you know. Very funny, Amanda, very funny. Yeah, so yeah, exactly. It's like a mini honeymoon. Yeah, you know. So that's the whole kit and caboodle. And but I will be on tomorrow for book club tomorrow morning. We're all going to Vegas this weekend. Let's do it this weekend. No, next weekend. I can't go this weekend. I'm taking Zoe to the Bluey house. I gotta take Zoe to the Bluey house tomorrow. I'm not going anywhere this weekend. It's very important. Yes, all of us going to Vegas together would be so fun. But I'm not giving up taking Zoe to the Bluey house. Yes, Vegas next weekend. That's correct. Yes. I live on the other side of the country. If I start driving now, that's funny. Feels like Sunday to me. My kids have been home too long. Yeah, no, today's only Friday, friends. It's only Friday. All right, well, we did it. We had a great night. I think he just keeps getting better and better as a writer, and I can't wait to see what's in the next book. It's called A Tale of Witchcraft. I don't know what we're in for, but I'm sure it's going to be something crazy. I'm going to go pack some orders and then go to bed so that I can be up for book club tomorrow and take Zoe to Bluey. I will let you all know how it is. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight, you guys.